Hey guys, welcome back to the channel. So today's video is going to be pretty straightforward. All we're going to be doing is wiring up the new pump and connecting it to our current fuel lines. Now, I was going to go and run the new feed, the new return, but right now I just want to get the car running so I could test it out with my new fans that I picked up. So I ordered these guys the other day. I got two Spal 12-inch fans. Now, the ones that were in there were the two that came with this eBay shroud. According to the listing, they pulled around 1,300 CFMs for the pair. These fans pulled 1,300 CFM each, so I'm gonna have plenty of fan power. If the car's still running hot, still acting weird, it's not a fan issue. Then I'm gonna go and throw my 160 thermostat in. A lot of you guys said in the comments on my last video, get a better water pump. This is a stock LSA water pump. The thing with that is I never had a problem with this thing overheating at idle like before. The thing that I'm thinking happened maybe 3-4 years ago, like right after I LS swapped this car, I picked up a G-Body Monte Carlo SS, and I did pretty much the same swap. I put a 5.3 in it, except I used the truck intake, I used a truck harness and truck accessories because the engine bay in that car is a lot bigger. The fender is a lot taller, you could get away with that big intake. But aside from that, I got the car swapped. The only thing I was waiting on was a set of radiator fans. Long story short, I pulled the fans out of the Camaro, put them in the Monte, and then went and picked up a used set of Ls1 fans for the Camaro. Now, as I remember, ever since I did that, that's when my overheating, well, not overheating, but running hot issue began. So I'm thinking the fans I picked up, being I did get them used, maybe they're just weak and worn out. And then the ones that I put in here, these, well, not these are the Spal ones, I already installed them. The eBay ones that I had in here before, they weren't that great. 90 bucks for the shroud and the fans. I mean, what can you really expect? So I'm hoping that these fans are going to fix my issue. But as I said, the car isn't running right now because I still didn't hook the fuel pump back up. I still didn't wire it in. So in this video, we're going to be running wires from the battery over here to the pump, putting a new relay in just so I can run the car, get any kinks worked out of it, make sure that it's not running hot anymore before the blower is actually on the car. And that's it. I can't run it, I can't drive it. The next time it's going to be running is going to be on the dyno when the tuner's tuning it. So I definitely want to make sure that these fans are working good, that it's not running hot. As you can see, I changed a few things. One thing being is I moved this fuse holder that used to be down there. I put it up here with the smaller tank. I did have room over here. These terminals were getting really corroded, I guess from water sitting down there or whatever. This is a Summit Racing fuse holder. It's supposed to be like weather resistant, I guess not waterproof, but either way, these terminals are sitting out here. So of course they're gonna get some corrosion on them. So I'm gonna cut these ends off, put some new ones on, and then I'm gonna use some dielectric grease on this. And this is gonna go over to my Spal fans, pretty much how it was before. And then for the fuel pump, I'm just gonna solder a wire onto here. Being I don't wanna use one of those terminals, I don't wanna risk that thing coming loose. So I'm gonna solder a wire onto here. That'll take care of that. I'll have my fuse for my fuel pump, and that's gonna go into the car and to the relay. Another thing I did was remove the two pusher fans. The reason for this being my heat exchanger, I'm gonna be mounting it right here, pretty much right up against the condenser. And I figured with these Spal fans, I should not need these pushers anymore. So what I decided to do, I'm just gonna take the two fans I had here, I'm gonna mount them onto the front of the heat exchanger. And instead of having the AC turn them on, I'm just gonna move the wire from the AC compressor and use a ground connected to a switch in the car. So if I'm at the track, between runs or whatever, I could just hit the switch on and that should cool down the blower a little bit quicker. In addition to that, I went and installed my meth tank. Now, this didn't come this way from AEM. I made this myself. Pretty much the AEM kit came with a 1-gallon reservoir. It had the level sensor in the corner, and if you can see down here, the actual fitting for where the meth's gonna come out at the bottom. What I did was, being I really didn't have anywhere to mount the tank, I think I have it here somewhere. All right, yeah, here's the tank that the kit came with. I had nowhere to put this. The intake's gonna be here. I could have maybe fit it somewhere in here, but I have a pretty big heat exchanger coming, so I don't think I'm gonna really have room in there. Plus it's gonna block airflow having it just sitting right in front of the radiator there. The only other option would have been to put this in the back of the hatch. So I decided to go and do this. But pretty simply, if you wanted to do something like this to your car, the fitting at the bottom just unscrews. You can see it has this little kind of like baffle in there. And I just screwed that. I drilled a hole, tapped it. This is pipe thread, so I tapped it and put it in this little, you can see it's kind of like a little baffle in the washer tank. So pretty much lowest point of the tank, I mounted that. And then for the level sensor, I just kind of eyeballed it, same position. You see the height is just about the same where I mounted it in the washer fluid reservoir. And to get that in there, that was a little bit more challenging. I didn't really have a way to thread it into the tank because it's a really big fitting. I didn't have a tap that big, I didn't have a drill bit that big, that exact size. So what I ended up doing was I used a Christmas tree bit, got the hole as close to the sensor as possible, so just kind of fit in there a little snug. And then I went with a piece of pipe, this exact diameter, heated it up real hot, slipped it over the thread insert, and just twisted it a little bit until the threads literally just fell in there and made this perfect little hole. And if you can see in there, that nut looking thing there, that's what was the insert that was molded into this tank. So I just went in there, put the tank on the side and got it threaded onto that. That's nice and tight. There's an O-ring around here, filled it up, it's not leaking. So that's my custom little meth tank. I just threw the AEM sticker that came with the kit on there. All right, so let's start getting to work now. First thing I'm gonna be doing is running the battery wire off of the fuse holder. To do that, I'm just going to run it up through the hole here where my old amp wire was running. And it's just gonna come out, I'm gonna loom it up, and it's gonna go down and into the car through the inside of the fender there. From here, I'm probably gonna wire up the new relay here. I'm just gonna take the grounding wire out of my current relay block, connect that to my new relay, and then from there, I'll run the thicker 12 gauge wiring down under the carpet and to the pump. I'll hook that up to my current fuel system, start the car up, and see how those fans work. If everything's good, I'll pretty much have the okay to bring the car back up and rip out the old fuel lines and start getting closer to putting this blower on the car. All right, so a little progress update where I'm at right now. I went and ran the 12 gauge wire from the engine bay, wrapped it in this loom here, have it coming through a hole, then it comes down in the fender and goes pretty much right below where the factory harness grommet was. And if you look in here, this is where the stock V6 fuel injection harness was. This is where the computer harness is on all 3rd gen, so if you're doing a swap like this, this is the harness you're actually looking to cut out. And the one on the other side, you see over here, this is the one you're keeping because this has your headlights and all your gauges integrated into it. So as far as the wiring, I drilled a hole, I put a grommet, and fished my new fuel pump power supply wire in. While I was at it, I also cleaned up these wires here. These 2 black ones that I ran for the AC, and this yellow one I believe is for low speed fan control, and then this green one is what the computer's grounding to turn the high speed fans on. And I just used the high speed, but I just have to reconnect them. I cut them off and fished them through before I had them coming in through the antenna hole here, and it was just kind of messy. So I made a hole for that, also put a grommet. That looks so much better. And at the same time, I just completely cleaned up all the wiring that was inside the fender well here. Before, the loom was kind of big, it was hanging down. But as for right now, I'm looking into the fuel pump wiring in the back here. First thing I was trying to figure out was which one was for the sender, and I found out that the black one here needs to be grounded, so I got to keep this ground coming out of the tank. I'm probably just going to splice it into the fuel pump ground. But the one that we're going to be keeping is this purple one here. That does control the fuel level sender, so that we need to keep. The only one I'm going to cut is the gray because that's the power for the factory pump. And now I'm going to have my thicker 12 gauge wire here for the pump power, so we're not going to need that anymore. All right, so all I did, I just pulled out the rest of the amp wiring, and I also went and removed the amps themselves. I decided I'm going to use this old jack mount as my ground. It's like a little wing nut stud on here. This is gonna be perfect. I'll just scrape some of the metal away, put a lock washer, and I could twist my ground down to there for the pump. I'm gonna run the power wire up over the fender, and then I'll probably just cross it over back there and into the hole that I made going to the pump. Ground's gonna come out that way as well and then just branch up over here. I was trying to figure out which relay was my fuel pump relay. Now excuse the mess. There are a lot of wires under here. I'm trying to untangle and sort out to clean up a bit. But this is the fuse block from the PSI conversion harness. This is getting main power from the starter motor. There's two terminals that connect to the starter, pretty much like the factory harness. That's what powers the whole harness itself. But for the fuel pump, you have to give it its own power. Now, I kind of touched on this in my Some Things You Should Know video, where I just ran through what I did during my swap. But when I was talking about tapping into the old wiring, this is what I meant. Now, this connector here, this is the old 3rd gen computer connector. The way I did it, now you're gonna have this this connector is gonna be here no matter what car you have, TBI, TPI, carburetor. You're gonna have this this engine connector in that harness. So when you're doing your swap, this is the harness that you do want to remove. But I decided to just keep the two connectors, and then all these wires here, this is what I used to actually feed and power my PSI harness, like as far as the fuel pump and the ignition power that it needed. But there's two relays here, there's a few fuses. One of them is an ignition relay, the other one is the fuel pump. We got a green here, this is coming from the PCM that's grounding it, I believe. Turn the key, PCM's gonna ground this relay, and then that's gonna run the pump. But to wire in my stronger pump, here is the wire that's going to the current 3rd gen pump. It's kind of weird though, I'm looking at this. This is a pretty thick wire. This has got to be like at least a 12 gauge wire. And this is coming right out of the computer connector. And then on this side, it kind of goes down a little bit, gets a little bit thinner. Then at some point, when it makes it back here, it's like even thinner. And that's the wire that I'm going to be changing with a thicker 12 gauge to power the stronger pump. So we do want to get that skinny wire out of there. That's the whole reason why I'm doing this. And then the other wire I'm going to be changing is the main power that's going to be coming to the relay and then going to the pump. It's pretty much all one circuit, it's just separated by the relay. This one is going to the fuel pump right now. I'm just going to put that in there. I'm going to stick this other one on a ground somewhere. And we'll just cycle the key. You see, 12 volts, then it goes away because the PCM primed the pump. So all I'm gonna be doing, I decided I am gonna leave this relay. I thought the wires coming out of here were gonna be a lot thinner, but these are actually like 12 gauge wires. I'm not sure, I guess I had to wire this because I know they don't give you, there's no wires coming in for the fuel pump. That you have to do yourself. All these other ones are already in here. So when I did this, I actually put some really thick wires in here, which I'm really glad I did that, because now all I'm gonna do, I'm just gonna cut this one here going to the pump, and then for the actual power wire, that's this one here, this is going to be replaced by my red one. So literally all I'm going to do, I'm going to cut this right here and I can solder this in, and then that's going to be feeding battery power into the relay, and then coming out of here this will be cut, and then my new red wire is just going to go back to the pump. But it's funny because I'm looking at this, and as you guys know who've been watching me for a while, I've been having problems with the fuel pump relay just randomly melting sometimes over the course of like a few months. And I'm looking at this wire, this thick one that's currently feeding power to the pump. And if you look, I got the 12 gauge I put in here, and then the factory, this is the factory fuel pump always cranking power wire. Look how tiny this is. Like, so this is what was powering the Walbro 255. Imagine trying to power the 400 with this thing. It would just like, if I'm not blowing fuses, I would just like melt the whole harness. But right now, I'm just gonna time lapse all this. I'm gonna cut this guy out, wrap this back up, cut this off, solder in my new fuel pump power, and then I'm gonna cut this and run the power and ground to the back of the pump. And we should be ready to make our braided hoses and start the car up. so it is the next day. I was working pretty late into the night yesterday trying to finish up the wiring for the pump, but I did get it done. Basically what I did was I took the ground for the sender coming out of the pump and I merged that with the ground for the fuel pump. I soldered them together, ran it, loomed it up along with the one purple wire for the this gauge sender, and then I just cut the gray one and just kind of left it inside there. But anyway, I loomed it up, fished it through my hole that I made when I was bypassing the connector. I did go and install a grommet. Then from there, I just soldered and reconnected the fuel sender wire. And while I was at it, the old ground end that was going to the sender, I just put a terminal on there and I screwed it into the body. I don't know if that's going, because that's going under the carpet with the rest of the fuel pump wires. I don't know if there's any other parts in the car that are actually grounding off that wire. So just to be safe, I reconnected it like that. From there, I went and got these little clamps that I'm using to secure the new fuel line. And I just use that to secure the new wire along the top here. I put it up here so when the carpet is over this, it'll be covered up. And then from there, I have my ground wire for the pump branching out of the harness, and then it comes along the back here. And I cleaned up the metal a little bit, put a terminal on there, and I grounded it right to this wing nut. From there, we're running down the side behind the plastic here. Then I have it running along here. There were these two little clamps here. I actually were the same size. I just popped in there to secure it. And from here, we connect to the fuel pump relay. And then from there, you saw me run the wire coming out of the engine bay out here and to my fuse block. For the fuse block end, once again, I crimped on one of those terminals, heat shrinked it, and on top of that, I soldered it to the block itself just to make sure it's not going to come loose with vibration. I don't want my fuel pump turning off out of nowhere. And on top of that, I hit it with some dielectric grease to hopefully prevent that corrosion that I got last time when I had the holder mounted down there and it was kind of getting like antifreeze spilled on it when I was filling the cooling system up. So hopefully it'll be better here, but I do like the location of this much more. A lot easier to access, nothing in the way. I managed to clean the wiring up here a little bit. The problem is that the main harness for the PSI harness, it's really long, being it's like it kind of lets you put the piece in wherever you want it. So it comes out through the firewall there, then it loops around, comes up here. So I have a lot of extra slack, but I did manage to cut a good amount of wires out, like extra, and I kind of loomed them up and cleaned it up a little bit. It's not really a rat's nest anymore. It's more like a snake pit. So before I could go ahead and start the car up, there's one thing I'm going to do. So I got some 3/8 and 5/16 rubber fuel injection hose. I'm just gonna connect that to the feed, clamp it on, run it down to the filter. Same thing for the return. And once that's done, I am going to go and start it up. Now, the main reason for doing this, I want to not only test the pump, but I want to get the car up to temperature and see if it's still doing that thing where it's running hot and the fans aren't really cooling it down at idle. I do have the new Spal fans in here. I'm hoping that this is going to fix my problem. In addition to that, I went and picked up a Lingenfelter 160 thermostat, and I am going to put this in here before I warm it up, just in case the fans don't do the job. So right now I'm going to hook the hoses up in the back, swap out the thermostat, and then we're going to go and start it up. Alright, so I just finished putting the thermostat in. I filled it up with coolant. Now I'm just going to go and start it up. You know, I never even checked to see if the fuel pump worked. I got all my hoses on there, but I never actually tested the circuit. Alright, everything's off. Oh, there it goes. Alright, perfect. So pump's working exactly how it was. Lines seem to be holding. This is only temporary. I'm just doing this so I can get the car heated up and make sure it cools correctly with the new fans and thermostat. But once it's good, nothing's leaking. But once I know the temperature's good, I could go and remove the old lines and we should be good to go. So let's start her up. Let this guy run, bleed any air out. Once the level drops, I'm going to pop the cap on, and then I'm going to go ahead and hook the scan tool up, and we're going to see what the temperature's at. All right, guys, so the cooling system is bled. Cap is on, made sure all the air was out. So I have the scan tool set up. And right now, no AC on, we're just idling here. We're at 194, temperature slowly going up. Fans haven't come on yet. They should come on any second. I'm finding that the scan tool is a little slow to respond than what the actual car is doing. But we're at 194, 196. All right, fans just went on at 196. Both are running. I feel them pulling air through the condenser as well. All right, we got up to 198. Back down to 196. Up 194. Fans just turned off. And we're down to 187. So it looks like the fans turned off around 190, and then it continued to drop a little. I think the scan tool is really old. I think it's a little slow reading what the car is actually doing. But we got down to 187. Now we're slowly going to go back up again. But it looks like between the thermostat and the fans that my problem is solved. You can see as soon as the fans came on, the temperature started dropping immediately. It didn't just stay hovering at 198. It went down relatively quickly, all the way down to 187, and they turned off like they were supposed to. Before with the Ls1 fans, then with the shitty eBay fans, they would just keep running and running and just sit at 198. And if I was driving or in traffic, it would just get hotter and hotter and hotter. But switching to the 1300 CFM 12-inch Spal fans appears to have solved my problem. I'm back up to 194, 196, and then the fans are going to come on again. But yeah, I'm very, very pleased with this. Fans just came on, and I'm sure now we're going to go back down to 187 where they're going to turn off. But yeah, huge result. I'm very happy with this. This is going to give us the go-ahead now to shut the car down, and I'm going to be able to remove the old fuel lines because I'm not going to need it running anymore until it's going to be tuned. I know the overheating problem is fixed, and just for reference on the temperature, because I know, yeah, it's just idling in the driveway. What's it going to do, like, you know, when you're in traffic on the highway? But last time I shot this video, when I shot the other video where it was sitting at 198, the temperature was only about like 70, 75 degrees. With it wasn't too humid out either. We're back down, fans just turned off as well. Right now we're at 96 degrees, feels like 105. It is the hottest day of the year right now, and my car ironically is no longer overheating. So yeah, that is extremely good. I am just gonna go pop the AC on right now. I wanna see how it works with the AC, being I did go and eliminate the pushers. All right, so I'm sitting in the car, all the windows are up, AC is blasting. I had it running for about 15 minutes, AC on, and temperature is at 203. Highest it went up to was 205. Hasn't gone any higher than that. Vent temp, we're looking at about 55 degrees, which I would like it to be colder, but as I said, it is 96 degrees outside. 55 is like 41 degrees below ambient temperature. So the AC is working how it should. I'm just gonna turn this off real quick, and with the hood down, I just wanna see if I could get this guy back down to 189. All right, so I got it down to 190 and I heard the fans turn off. That's good enough for me. Everything's working. It's not running hot idle anymore. All right, so I think I'm gonna wrap this one up here. My pump is wired up and working great. I fixed my overheating issue, but I'm gonna put a link to my Instagram down below, as well as all the parts I used today. I'm going to link the fan shroud once again, as well as the two 12-inch Spals that I use that I highly recommend. They fix my overheating problem. I'm also gonna link the Lingenfelter Lsa 160 Thermostat, as well as the 160 version if you have a regular Ls1 water pump. But as always, if you enjoyed this video, please be sure to like, comment, and subscribe, and I'll see you next time.